We'll be talking about how to use the TI-Nspire to help us find scientific notation. Now, with the TI-Nspire, scientific notation can be found in a multitude of ways. It depends on how many digits is in the problem and various other aspects. One of the first things I'm going to talk about with the TI-Nspire is how to find the scientific notation if there's only 1 to 6 digits. So one of the first things you want to do is you want to go to Settings, Document Settings, and you want to change exponential format to scientific, and then you want to change the calculation mode to approximate. Now, in order for this to take effect, we have to make this as default, and it's going to ask us, hey, do we agree with this? So I'm going to press OK. All right, so now I'm going to go to calculate on the scratch pad, and I'm going to put some numbers in here. I'm going to put 300 and just press enter. And there I go. So I get 3 times 10 to the second power for the scientific notation of 300. Let's put this number in here. And I get this in scientific notation right here. I can even put decimals in here. And it's going to give me my answer of 3.2 times 10 to the negative 4 power. So whenever it is 1 to 6 digits, I can put it straight into the calculator by changing the settings. And we talked about changing 2 things: exponential to scientific. And then one of the other things we talked about is changing calculation mode to approximate. Now, let's say I want to go back to my standard setting. So if I want to go back to my standard setting, I want to go to Home. I want to press Settings, Document Settings, and I want to say, hey, Restore. It's going to select Factory Defaults, and we have to make it default. So now when I go back and I try to put this in my calculator, it doesn't work. It's still going to give it to me in standard notation. Now, going back to this regular format, let me clear this out for just a moment. Going back to this regular format, let's say it is 7 digits or more. Let me show you the format we will have to do if it's 7 digits or more. I just put my numbers in there. And I'm going to click on this double E, which is a symbolization we're going to use for the scientific notation. I put that in there, and I put 0. Press Enter. And now it gives it to me in scientific notation. It'll only work if I have at least 7 digits or more, and my settings is in standard setting. And we talked about those standard settings. So remember, the first setting I talked about was, hey, if I want to put this in scientific notation and there's 6 digits or less, remember I have to change this to scientific, and then I have to change this to approximate. But if I have, and I'm just going to cancel this out, but if I have 7 digits or more, I just put it on the standard screen, which we already see is normal and auto. And when I put this into the calculator, I'm going to put at least 7 digits in there. I press E, E0, and it gives it to me in scientific notation. That's one key thing we would do when this kind of problem, when it's 7 digits or more. Let's look at a problem like this. Once again, it's 7 digits or more, E0, and there we go. So it gave it to me in scientific notation. That's the second step right there, or should I say the second way we could talk about scientific notation. Remember, the first step was if it's 6 digits or less. This step is 7 digits or more. And finally, the last thing we want to talk about is if it is equivalent. So let's clear this out by pressing Doc B. And I'm going to pinpoint this problem. So it's talking about Jamie used a microscope to measure the diameter of a hair. She found that the diameter of her hair was 0.00072 meters. How's this number written in scientific notation? All right. So with this kind of problem, remember, you want everything to be in standard, in a standard setting. So remember, doc, normal, calculation mode. And I keep bringing this up so you don't make the mistake of, if you change this right here to scientific, and approximate. If you forget to change this back, it's going to make everything you put into the calculator scientific. So let's just keep this on normal. So the last two ways we do scientific notation, we always want to put that at normal and auto. So going back here, I'm going to put this number in here, and that's 0.000072. And I want to see is it equivalent to that very first one. All right. So let's see is it equivalent. So I'm going to press equal 7.2 times 10. And I'm going to press this button right here to get that power. And I'm going to press -5. And it tells me that it is true. All right. So whenever it tells me it is true, I know that's my answer right there. Only if that first coefficient, if that coefficient is between 1 and 10. Sometimes you may come across a problem where it may be 72 times 10 to a different power. And if that's the case, then the one that's 72 will automatically be disqualified because that coefficient must be between 1 and 10. So let's look at the other ones. I'm going to put those other ones in there. Let's put B in there. 7.2 times 10 to the 6th power. Look at that. That's false right there. Let's do the last two, which is 0.00072 equal 7.2 times 10 to the 5th power. And I see that that one is false as well. Last one, equal to 7.2 times 10 to the -6th power. So all the last three are false because they're not equivalent. The first one is correct, and that's what I was speaking on earlier. Make sure that you do all of the problems just to give yourself a little confirmation to make sure that it's on the right track. Let's try one more. I'm just going to throw this out there. Times 10 to the -4. That's not quite it. I'm just trying to think of a different scenario where you may see this right here. Times 10 to the -6. All right. And you see, this is the one I was talking about. You see that one is true. But if you look at it, look at that coefficient. That coefficient is not between 1 and 10. Remember, whenever we're talking about scientific notation, that coefficient must be between 1 and 10. This one, it may say true, but if you look at that coefficient, it is not between 1 and 10. So that's another indication that this doesn't work. Remember, the problem that did work was this one right here. This one is true. It is equivalent. And then you can see that the coefficient is between 1 and 10. So that's another indication. So I talked about 3 different steps. Remember, the first one is if you got 6 digits or less, you have to go in there and change your settings. And the last 2 steps, you want to put your settings back at restore to the default settings and proceed with the process. All right, thank you very much for taking the time to listen to this tutorial on how to use the TI-Nspire.